Let me ask you this question. Have you ever had the idea of building the real anti-gravity device? Well, everyone has his own thoughts, right? But unless you're not interested, at the end of the day, you want to make sure what you have learned is valid. And this will immediately give you the idea of building the real anti-gravity device. These anti-gravity phenomena have been something that the governments didn't want any one of us to be aware of, especially when it comes to how they operate in these fine platforms that we already recognize, like the OTC X1, Silfake generator, Gravitical's platform, and Sharberg's device. There's even other. But firstly, this concept of anti-gravity is taking almost the whole part in the modern technology. And I think this is the reason why every single scientist who tries to reveal the real secret about anti-gravity is silenced. So today I'm going to go over this anti-gravity concept, and I want you guys to stay focused and be aware of these mistakes that you guys still make when you are analyzing this strange stuff. So stay focused and let's get straight to it.
This thing some people talk about called anti-gravity. Is it real? Well, no, or at least probably not.
I think you are also familiar with this type of analysis, where people think that the anti-gravity phenomenon does not exist. And this is exactly what I've been telling you all this time. When you rely on the long analysis, you end up getting confused, and you won't even achieve a little effect from them. So, the only solution to this situation is that you start carrying out your own experiments. This will help you more than just watching the YouTube videos. So, whenever I say something in my videos and you don't totally agree with it, or maybe you are not really sure about it, you have to carry out your own experiments about it. Because I want each one of my subscribers to analyze things the right way, where they will get the final results.
Because of the way the gravity is being used, gravity bends time and space, and it bends light.
So when it comes to this thing we call anti-gravity, or the electromagnetic propulsion force, it actually depends on how you want to call it. I totally believe it's real. But let me first get where this whole story started. Since Nikola Tesla invented the AC electricity, the idea of anti-gravity was born. And this also got me wondering about this fascinating topic, which is called conductivity. To everyone who doesn't know or what I mean when I talk about conductivity, conductivity is the key to everything when it comes to the electromagnetic propulsion systems. This is the picture that I got when I was analyzing the propulsion procedures of Victor Sharberg's device. But I don't really think you actually understand this. And I think it was my first time ever seeing that diagram in the internet. But the funny point here is that when you look closely on this diagram too, you will also notice the polarities of charge. So the question here is, why does every single model depends on this concept of conductivity? When you also get where the whole story of the seal effect generator started, it will then literally take you to the script from one of my interesting videos on my main channel called Physics, where I explained how the idea of the seal effect generator came, and I hope you all understand it. So let's get straight to it and take notes if possible, right?
In 1946, John Charles discovered that in a fast rotating disk, a radial driving force with a vertical vector appears. In order to increase this effect, he first magnetized the disk using permanent magnets. Inspired by his work, John Charles and John Searle tested a model outside, and already at a short rotation, a strong difference of potentials occurred in the radial direction of the rings, which actually caused the crackling of charge and the smell of ozone. Then something unexpected happened. The block of rings took off, and the disk kept spinning and floated about 1 meter above the ground. The object was surrounded by a pink glow, which signified the activation of the air at a drop in pressure. Do you remember what John Searle said? He mentioned that when the conductivity switched, his platform was propelled by the surrounding air. The seg accumulates the high electrostatic charges that ionize the surrounding air and envelop it in an intense vacuum. You should also ask yourself this question: Why does some of the UFOs depends on this concept of conductivity? This also relates to what Otis T. Carr said. He said that the two rotating and counter-rotating charged bodies invokes when you also look at the technologies of the Aryan flying saucers and other flying platforms, which has no moving parts, conductivity comes first on the list. So that was the picture of the SEG in the 1940s, and that is actually the way we should be understanding this flying platform, without using other mathematical terms or equations. But today when people talk about the SEG, this is the picture that actually comes to your mind, right? A bunch of coils surrounding the rotating magnets. And this is where this whole topic gets even more funny. I'm pretty sure that you have seen a lot of videos from different people who are trying to replicate the seal-fake generator. At the slow rotation, the SEG accumulated high electrostatic charges, which caused the crackling of charge and the smell of ozone. To be honest, we actually know only two Russians who tried to replicate the seal-effect generator: Vladimir Loshid and Sergei Godin. These guys visited John Charles in prison. They asked him a lot about his device, but even though he didn't tell them the secret, they didn't give up until they finally built their own free energy device. At only 350 kilograms, it gave 10 kV of electric power without using any fuel, and its weight dropped during rotation. And here we are today. We have permanent magnets, coils, and the surrounding plate. That's all. How could these components here provide the high electrostatic charges that can ionize the surrounding air? This question popped up in my mind a few weeks ago. I was wondering, why does every single concept about the seal-effect generator talks about its free energy? Nobody is talking about anti-gravity concept. So here's what I think. The SEG accumulates high electrostatic charges which ionizes the surrounding air. Then the ionized air gets enveloped in an intense vacuum, where it will easily be affected by the electromagnetic fields of the plates and the electromagnetic coils in order to get the anti-gravity effect. The potentials created by the generator can reach even to the highest levels due to the designs and installations of the SEG, which makes high voltage flashover seem impossible. And here's an interesting fact about the seal effect generator. Unlike any other form of the electrical technology, the presence of electrons flow through the generator actually cools it, reducing resistance. This phenomenon is due to the free electrons being pulled out of the air, and the resulting energy causes the air to cool. It is also written that when the SEG reached 4 Kelvin degree of coldness, it completely took off the ground. But my opinion on this is that we have to change the way we understand this device, right? Instead of spending that much time learning more about the seal's rows of squares, you have to take a pen and make your own energies based on the extremes. That is the only way you will understand exactly the mechanism which actually takes place.
So I think this video explains a lot about the seal effect generator, especially when you look at this topic called conductivity. You don't even have to believe what I'm saying right now. You should listen to what John Su said himself. He said that when conductivity switched, his platform was propelled by the air. You can also depend on what Otis T. Carr said in one of his interviews. He said that the two rotating and counter-rotating charged bodies invokes rift. So all of these are the facts which signifies the real truth about conductivity. But when I talk about this, I don't want you to think in terms of these kinds of videos. Well, they are also interesting at the same time, but when you want to get something bigger, you have to go even further.
It has 0 moving parts and is powered by about 20,000 volts.
This is one of the interesting videos that I got from one of the Plasma Channel's video, where he explains a lot about the ionic wind and how the ionic wind provides hope for anti-gravity. Well, I really like his videos. They are really interesting. But the problem is that he tries to relate ionocraft to the anti-gravity effect. He also uploaded a video maybe a few months ago where he was talking about the ionocraft, and if you have seen that video, I think you actually saw that he didn't get the anti-gravity effect at all. Well, maybe you don't understand this. The back shell uses only 4 electrostatic volts to achieve the effect of gravitation. By gravitation, I mean where one wing gravitates over the other one. But the ionocraft here uses almost 30,000 electrostatic volts, to only lift grams. And by that being said, it also makes me wonder how many volts will it require to lift a platform which weighs like OTC-X1 in the air. Can you even imagine that impossibility? That is totally impossible. That is crazy. Because if we even apply that amount of energy, that amount of volts in the platform, it can destroy almost anybody in the platform. So when I talk about conductivity, I don't want you to think in terms of the ionic ring, the ionic thrusters, because you can even apply 1 million volts of electrostatic charges and still get no anti-gravity effect at all. So let's jump to the next question. How does OTC-X1 work? And how does it relate to this concept of conductivity?
It's something that they seem to take out every 8 or 10 years.
What do you know about this platform? The OTC-X1 is one of the mysterious platforms ever existed. And when you even use YouTube search, you will find almost no video talking about this thing, except the interviews of Otis Tikar. So let me get to the bottom of his story. Otis Tikar was an inventor who invented a flying platform, which he called the OTC-X1 model. Using two counter-rotating metal plates, spinning electromagnets, and large capacitors, which when spinning charged and powered by battery, the whole platform became activated by the energy of space. He also created a company which was supposed to advance and apply technologies suggested by Nikola Tesla. The company was called OTC Enterprise. So what do we have in the model? In the OTC-X1, we have central accumulator, Utrons, capacitor plates, C-shaped electromagnets, and the hollow. When it's running, the central segmented disk, actually the inner part, rotates in one direction, and the outer part rotates in another. This also applies to the gravifier because the upward disk and the lower disk rotates in different directions. And we actually know how to get this phenomenon on the gravifier. We use motors on both disks. But when it comes to the OTC-X1, this phenomenon gets a little bit different because the outer part of the craft doesn't get powered by the motor to start moving. So how is this counter-rotation produced? Let's take a look. This is what we have in the model. As demonstrated by Laughing, this is actually how the Utrons are positioned in the C-shaped electromagnets. Looking from the upward, Utron is like a circle, and it looks like square on the side view. When it's pressed in the C-shaped electromagnets, there's a little space, almost no space, between the Utrons and the electromagnets. Remember, on the OTC-X1, the inner disk is powered by battery to start moving, but the outer part doesn't get powered like that. You only turn on the C-shaped electromagnets. Well, I think you guys remember the latest demonstration I talked about in the latest video, when I was talking about the aluminum plate and the magnet experiment. But in case you don't, take a thick aluminum plate, put it on a table, and then take a neodymium magnet. Then move it fast near the plate. What did you see? The effect you are going to experience is that the aluminum plate will move a little bit in the dilation of the magnet. And this phenomenon also applies in the OTC-X1 model. The Utron is made of a big size of aluminum. So when you spin the central disk, which contains the Utrons, inside the C-shaped electromagnets, the Utrons will dilatorily accelerate in the different dilation to the dilation of the central disk. This means if the central disk is moving right, the Utrons will move left. Then at a certain acceleration of the central disk, the outer part C-shaped electromagnets will start moving in the same dilation as the Utrons. Well, we actually know that the object gains mass the faster it accelerates to light speed, right? This means we have to let the counter-rotations do the rest automatically. The Utrons will accelerate faster, and this will cause the rapid speed of the electromagnets and the outer part of the craft. And when the outer part's rotation reaches the inner disk rotation, the craft will be activated by the energy of space. Well, at this point, I think you are also asking yourself, how would this platform levitate above the ground? Well, we have activated the platform, But this is where the topic gets even more fascinating. Because if we have activated the platform, then the next step is to find out the way this platform will levitate above the ground. So let's get straight to the topic, and this will directly take us to this fascinating interview Oresti Kakav with the media when he was talking about his platform. And here's actually what he said when he was asked the difference between the UFOs and his device. He said, "We don't know. We didn't have a chance to examine the objects we saw, but we acknowledged the use of the same principles. Our design uses gravity, electromagnetism, electromotive force, and the relation field to obtain its operational functionality." And when John asked him if his device wouldn't need the rocket systems to take off the ground, here's what he said. He said, "We take energy from air and from other dimensions. The Earth itself is a spaceship, which demonstrates what we are stating. It is rotating and orbits at a constant speed within a magnetic field. Our planet is the propeller of our ship." When you take a closer look at these statements of Carl, I'm pretty sure you'll notice some of the interesting statements and keywords that could help you understand well this flying platform. For example, here he said, "We take energy from air and from other dimensions." This statement matches 100% with what John Searle said when he said that his platform was propelled by air when conductivity switched. And this is actually what I've been telling you. I didn't know more about this interview that he had with John, but after reviewing everything that he said, to be honest, this question popped up in my mind. Why are these men's principles much related? I mean, this is a known interview that Oresti Kakav with the media when he was introducing his device to the public. Well, maybe some of the clips were removed, but according to how Oresti Kakav was answering the questions, it seems like he didn't want to expose the whole secret to the public. But he did use some of the obvious topics and statements that could tell people a little bit about the secrets that he was hiding at the time. He also said that the Earth is a spaceship, which demonstrates what he was saying. It is rotating and orbits at a constant speed within a magnetic field. And this obviously was what his platform does, because we first get it spinning, and when the outer part's rotation matches the inner disk rotation, they said it gets activated by the free space energy. And then if the platform is already activated, the last method is to find out how the produced electromagnetic fields will help us to gain gravitation. And I totally think you know how. This will directly take us to this man called James F. King Jr. In 1964, James F. King Jr. presented his apparatus on how the ionized region gets affected by the magnetic fields. Well, this will directly take us to this concept that I think some of the scientists talk about differently, even wrong. It is called the MHD, or the magnetohydrodynamics. It depends on how you want to call it. We use this method to directly affect the highly charged region around the craft, so we can get propulsion when the spinings are in the right directions. I think it sounds easier, right? But you have to understand that this is not something that you can wake up in the morning and start replicating. They say that when the seal effect generator, when it was 1 meter above the ground, it produced a pink glow. So these things require a lot of experiments and a lot of analysis. And I've been telling you this in my latest videos on my main channel called Kiriam Physics. Well, maybe you've heard about the OTCX1, seal effect generator, Gravitical's platform, and more. To be honest, we know how advanced these platforms are, but I think I'm not the only one who have seen these UFO videos, which are all over the internet. These unidentified flying objects are somehow scary when it comes to how they control nature. They move at light speeds, they sometimes perform the right angle turns, and they sometimes produce much light when they are about to take a quick travel. Well, I don't think you actually understand the right angle turn that I'm actually talking about. Suppose that I have a stone and I'm about to drop it on the ground. But before it gets to the ground, it immediately turns on the side and keeps moving. I think you actually understand how crazy this sounds, right? Because the stone already has the initial forces when it's moving, which makes it even harder for it to turn left or right. This phenomenon of the right angle turns was also performed by the ARV, or the Iron Production Vehicle. Well, what I'm actually trying to tell you is that these platforms really need attention when you are analyzing them and carrying out the experiments about them. Because I'm pretty sure you notice some of the interesting phenomena you didn't know before, but only when you decide to do the experiments. So, the OTCX1 generates high electrostatic charges the more it accelerates to high speeds. It is also said that the OTCX1 model had some principle similar to those of the motionless electrical generator, or the MEG, which will be used to solve the problems of less electrical power. This craft uses the principles of MHD drive. We charge the hollow with HV positive and the Tesla coil, and then HV negative on the bottom of the outer part. The positive charge will accelerate downward on the negative electrodes, forming fields. Then the central core will also form the electromagnetic fact signs, running from the top to the bottom. According to my own experiments and analysis, here's what I propose. When the frequency of the central core's electromagnetic fields matches the electrostatic field's frequency, they will immediately resonate and develop another kind of fields which will be affected by the rotating electromagnetic fields produced by the C-shaped electromagnets, Utrons, and the capacitor plates. At this time, the whole craft will be resonating, which means it will detect any change. Even when you try to disturb the outer part of the craft, you will feel the effect in a form of sound. At a certain acceleration, when the charges are already built up, the craft will start taking off the ground according to the dilations of the Utrons, inner disk, and the outer part of the craft. This anti-gravity concept is large when it comes to how people explain it. There's even others who doesn't believe it exists at all. But to clear all these misconceptions, I'm preparing another interesting video which will cover this whole topic of anti-gravity. If you want to know when I upload it, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get back to the topic. How long have you been analyzing these platforms? And which one was very hard for you to analyze? Well, we all understand how hard it is for anyone who wants to start building the first prototype. And that is really worth it. But we have to change the way we understand these devices, right? Well, let me ask you a question if you're watching this part right now. Have you ever wondered why after all the videos you have seen and all the articles you have read, you are still unable to replicate even a little prototype? Well, I've been saying this in all the videos. The only solution to this situation is that you have to start carrying out your own experiments. This will help you more than you can even imagine. Let me tell you about this underrated genius, Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla had a lot of mysteries and knowledge about nature, to the point where he didn't even want to build a flying saucer. The only thing which helped Nikola Tesla become this famous and genius is the way he understood things by carrying out the experiments, which accidentally led to some of his shocking inventions like death ray, earthquake machine, transformers, the Tesla tower, and the Tesla coils. We can even mention this mysterious man from Russia, Viktor Gromyko. But when it comes to this man, things get a little bit different, because for Nikola Tesla, he was already in the fields of electromagnetic fields and stuff, which actually made it simple for him to do the research. But Gromyko, on his side, he was a biologist. He only did with insects. This means there could not have been any way he would have achieved this if he didn't do the experiments with the bug shells. If you have analyzed his platform and these other flying platforms, I think you have also wondered why these platforms are much related. Well, the only reason why these platforms are much related is not because they replicated each other's work, but the fact that whenever each one of them carried out the experiments and found it necessary to use some principles similar to what another scientist used, he used it. And this fact here is really fair enough to make their performance principles look alike, even though they didn't replicate each other's work. I also think that the governments are hiding something useful from the stories of these scientists. Well, let me take you back. I don't think you actually remember the time Gravitakov wanted to publish his book called My World, where he included all the details needed to build his platform. The book editors and publishers denied his book and ordered him to remove some statements and other footages in order to be approved. Well, I don't really know what you think about that, but that is really suspicious. Let us talk about the seal effect generator. I also have read that in order to have a fully working prototype of the seal effect generator, you have to invest about $3 million. How could you believe this lie? This is actually a statement created by these guys to discourage anyone who wants to start replicating this platform. Few years ago, I started seeing some of these content creators who were trying to replicate the seal effect generator. But when I first saw these videos, I wondered this question. If we really want to start replicating the SEG, then why are we more interested into its free energy rather than focusing on how we can get it off the ground? You can also understand what I'm actually saying here. Suppose that we have the permanent magnets surrounding the plates, and we also have the outer coils. And how is this arrangement here going to help us achieve the effect of gravitation and free energy? That is not gonna happen. Well, maybe because you have seen a video where a person was lighting an LED. You may say there is hope, but that is totally wrong. Because when you understand the amount of energy is being applied to even light up those LEDs, you will be blown out. And here's where we are all making mistakes about the seal effect generator. We are believing that the schematics and the laws of squares that John Searle provided were 100% true. And with this mindset, we are far away from achieving anything on the seal effect generator, whether it's the free energy or the anti-gravity effect. So, carry out experiments based on how you understand things instead of how you learn them. Because even the internal design of the seal effect generator can actually change according to your energies, and the design can still be more successful than the actual design Mr. Searle provided. So after watching this video, I know you've picked up some interesting topics that will help you in your energies. But let me ask you a question first. Are you going with these real facts riffed by the owners of these fine platforms, or you are going with these useless complicated theories and calculations? Tell me in comments. I know a lot of people have met John Robert Roy in real life, expecting him to tell them the secrets of the seal effect generator, but he didn't. So I think this is actually a good time that we should put together and pick up from the statements and real facts raised by these legendary scientists. So this is the end of this fascinating video.